Alright, so we're going to go over briefly what we talked about in class and then what we did after class, and go over a topology that I'm going to give you that's blank that you're going to have to fill out and practice yourself, so that way it'll be a little bit easier and quicker for you guys. So this is what we went over in class. Mr. CHARIF said explicitly this will be the test with different IP addresses. So really and truly the address that matters is right here, the one that's being used for our public addresses. If it's a /29, we've only got .3 to .5 to choose from for the pool. And in this case, you know, we're going to change up to /28, give us some more. But this is our ISP network, which you're really never going to do, but for our purposes, we're going to set up. Here is going to be our dynamic NAT with pool. So this is going to be anybody in this LAN is going to be able to access the internet using a pool of addresses to be translated into. We're going to have the overload, also known as PAT, which is going to go through the serial interface. So that means all these connections will use the IP address of the serial interface. And then we're also going to put a static IP address on this server because we want that server to always be reachable from the outside. What we did after class was the exact same thing, but I added in a secondary LAN, or rather a third LAN total, and we added in another server that needed a static address. We also did /28, so we have more addresses in the pool to pull from. So as you can see here, this is our dynamic NAT pool again. These two are both going to be PAT using the serial port on router 1, which is right here, and then this server and this server got a static address. I also changed up some of the IP addresses to make things more interesting, and what we're going to be going over today is this example. So this is going to be a blank file I'm going to upload, and then I'll also upload the complete one. Now, I have not put in any of the IP schema yet, so what we're going to do is alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put all this information in, and I'm going to fast forward through all this so you guys don't have to watch. You know how to do this, but I'm going to include this so that if you want to practice, which you should, you can do it. Alright, so here we go. Forward through time. Alright, so the text, I'm going to go ahead and save it as a different file name because the one that I'm using right now is going to be different. After class Pracapp, this one's going to be called Pracapp 3 Topology Practice Inputs. Well, we'll just put practice. Practice commands. There you go. That way you guys know. Okay, so you notice I changed a couple things. mainly my IP address, the ISP connections, because I changed both of those numbers, and as well on router 1 we had to change what was going on OSPF. You guys know how to do OSPF. Super simple. These are the commands right here. And the one thing that we did add that's new for this is putting IPNAT inside or IPNAT outside when we're setting up our interfaces. So if you notice here, I've got this drawn out thing that says inside to show you that these networks are considered inside, and then I have this drawn which is outside. So essentially this serial port is considered outside, everything else is considered inside, connected to that router, and then of course everything on the ISP is outside. But you don't have to put any of that on the ISP because ISP is not part of our NAT. So you just, only thing you have to do is the router 1 is going to have inside and outside on the NAT. So now that's all set up, we should be able to ping everything we need to ping. So let's go ahead and command prompt here, and let's do some pinging, shall we? Ping, let's ping my gateway 192.168.0.1. Of course I can see that. Let's ping the outside 99.8.7.1. Sure enough I can see it. Let's ping the ISP .2. Of course I can see that. And we don't want to be able to see it, so that's going to be our next step, is not making it so that we can't see that, right? So ping 123.123.1, that's the gateway for the ISP network. And we did what? .22 and .2. So we'll do .2. Should be able to find it. There we go. And 22. What's important is that we kind of network all this out, map all this out. That way it's stored. So that way when we ping in the future, it'll be a lot faster. Let's go ahead and ping 10.11.12.1. And we'll ping 12, which is these computers. Make sure we get all this whole network pinged out. That way, again, once we start rolling, it'll know where everything's at. 13 is another one. There we go. We do ping 192.168.0.11. There we go. We can see it. And 22 is my other computer. And then we'll finally ping LAN 3 as well, so that way we can have that written down. 172.16.8.1, and then .2 and .8. That's the server. All right, that's it. We should have everything identified. Oh, we'll do 99.8.7.2. We'll do the outside of the ISP. Okay, so that's all done. So we have pinged everything. We know everything can talk. We don't want that. We don't want everything to be able to talk, at least right now, because the ISP should be blocking all of the public addresses. So if I come here to the ISP, you'll see we've got this part done, right? We did our router OSPF, blah, blah, blah. Now, the part 2, we're going to do an access list that denies the 3 sets of public addresses, or private addresses, that are every ISP is going to block, right? So this is the part that he emphasized to us a lot. So it's sort of hard to remember, I guess. You're just going to have to remember these numbers and practice, practice, practice. So we're going to come into the ISP here. We are already in, so we can do config T, and then we're going to type in access list, and we'll call it 69. Nice. Deny 192.168.0.0, and then wildcard mask 0.0.255.255, and that's going to be the standard. You always put these in, right? We're going to go ahead and do what? 172 next. So 72, and instead of 168, it's 16.0.0. and we're going to do 0.15.25.255.255. So it's going to be subnet mask of 0.15.255.255. So this one's going to be another one we have to remember. And for this next one, it's going to be 10.0.0.0. So that's a whole lot that we're blocking. Anything that starts with 10 is getting blocked. And our wildcard mask is 0.255.255.255. So these are the commands, and I just ruined it. Oh, I ruined it. I didn't hit enter. But it's okay. It's easy to remember, right? 10.0.0.0 and then 0.255 3 times. Okay? Now that blocks all of the private addresses for all the classes that we need to block. When we do an access list, remember we need to do what at the end? We need to have our failsafe, which is going to be 69 nice permit any. Now we're not doing permit any because we're not doing an extended access list. All right. Now we've identified everyone we want to block, and now we need to tell it. We need to tell the bodyguard where to stand. So we've created the list to give to the bodyguard. Remember this from last time. Created the list to the bodyguard. Let's go give it to him. So where do we want to put that at? We want to put it right here at the entrance to the ISP. So we don't want to let any traffic get past or go through the ISP at all. We want to stop it at the door of the ISP. Don't let them in the club. So that for us right now is going to be serial 000. So I'm going to interface serial 0/0/0. And then after I do that, we're going to do this simple command, which is IP access group. We called it 69. Nice. And then in. So what does that mean? That means that any traffic going into that connection, right? So coming anywhere going into this connection is going to be put through that access list. And that access list is going to deny all of these IP addresses. Okay? Hit enter. That's done. Exit, exit, read write. So I'll go ahead and throw that in here as well, just so you guys have it. And what I'll do is I'll rearrange all of this so that it's in order, so that you guys will know step by step what order to do them in. Because right now I just kind of have them grouped, part 1, part 2, but I'll do it in steps so it's easy for you to remember. Okay, so now if we come back and try to ping anything on the ISP network, so let's say that, there you go. I cannot ping the interface. If I wanted to ping its server, which would be 210.123.123.2, guess what? Destination host unreachable. So it's doing its job. It's blocking us from being able to see it. That's what we want. So now I can still communicate with other computers in my network, 10.11.12.13. I can still see those, no problem. So we've blocked only going into the ISP's area. So that's good. That means it worked. Now, we go to the next part, which is going to be doing work inside of our router. And what we want our router to do is translate the private addresses to public addresses that will be allowed through by the bouncer. The bouncer says none of these addresses are allowed in, so we're going to give it an address that's not one of those, and it'll be allowed in. So we're going to go back to router 1, and we're going to hit enable config T, and we're going to start with creating an IP NAT pool. So if you look at our diagram here in this blue, we want this LAN 1 to be using a pool of addresses to be translated to go visit out, right? So I have this description here talking about it. If you look at what IP address we've been given for the network between us and the ISP, it's a /28. /28 means there's 16 addresses. So if you do the subtract 2, which you always have to do, that means there's 14 available addresses. We removed 2 addresses for .1 and .2, which we've already created on these interfaces. That leaves us with 12 addresses. I've got 2 addresses here that I want to make static. So you take 2 more away from that, 12, and that gives us a grand total of 10 addresses. So our pool is going to actually be 99.8.7.3 to 99.8.7.13. Those will be our addresses for our pool. So if you actually come in here, we're going to get to that command. I'm going to change it. We talked about Shrek. Shrek is love in class, or in the after class. So we'll go ahead and keep it that way. IP NAT pool, that's your command. So you're saying IP NAT pool. IP NAT pool, that is your command. If we come back in a question mark here, your options are inside, outside, and pool. We want to do pool, and then we're going to call it Shrek. We'll call it Shrek is love. Why not? And then we'll go ahead and put our addresses in. So what did we just say they were? 99.8.7.3, and then we hit a space. That's all you hit. And then put your end address. So this is the start to the pool, into the pool. 99.8.7.13. Now the next command we have to put is at the end. We have to tell it what the subnet mask is, right? And if it's /28, our subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.240. And that's it. That's the entire command. Once we get that done, we can hit enter. Okay, it took it. So now we're going to come in here real quick and change this so that way you guys have an accurate one. 0.7. Okay, and everything else is the same. Now we've identified, we made the pool, right? So you went outside in the backyard, you built your pool, you inflated the pool, you filled it with water, ready to go. Now we got to say who's allowed to swim in the pool. Same thing. I want to give the bouncer a list of who's allowed to swim in the pool. So the command's going to be access list. So you remember, you can type ACK and then tab. It'll fill it for you. ACC then tab. We'll call this list 69 as well. Nice. And instead of denying, we want to permit. We want to tell it who's allowed in the pool, right? And we have said we want this network right here in blue to be who's in the pool. So for us, that LAN's IP address, or the network ID, is 192.168.0.0. And then what's the wildcard mask? 0.0.0.255, because it's a /24. So this is our network ID and our wildcard mask going in right here. And that's it. Hit enter. It's been accepted. Now, we've created the pool. We've created the list. Now we've got to tell the bouncer where to stand, right? So IP NAT, remember we had inside, outside? Well, all of these LANs are considered inside, remember, because we put IP NAT inside. So essentially what we're doing when we're creating those interfaces, when we say IP NAT inside or IP NAT outside, that creates a list of inside and outside ports, right? So when we say IP NAT inside, we're acknowledging those LANs that we've already said were IP NAT inside. So all IP NAT inside, and then where's our source of information? So if you can remember IP NAT inside and hit question mark, you only have one option. It's source. So just remember IP NAT inside, then you hit source. And what is my source options? List or static? Well, we just made a list earlier, did we not? We called it Shrek is love. So our list is going to be, we made a list just now. It was access list 69, right? Nice. So we're going to say source list, and then what's the number? 69. And then we have to tell it what pool to use with that list. So we're going to write the word pool. Again, if you hit question mark, you have two options, pool or interface. We're doing a pool, so you're going to type in the word pool, and then Shrek is love. And that is the command we need. So we're going to come in here and change this as well on our document, so that way it doesn't get confusing. And Shrek is love. There we go. All right. So we created a pool. We went outside, dug the pool. We told it what addresses are part of the pool. Then we created a list. So who goes in the pool? Then we're going to tell it inside only. Use this list that we created to play in this pool. There you go. So then we're going to exit. Read write. Now, did I really do that? I could have done do read write, but it's fine. You guys know. All right, we'll go ahead and config T back in. Now, That means anybody in here should be able to now see those addresses. So let's test it. Let's come to our server here. What were we not able to do earlier? We were not able to ping that ISP, and look, there you go. We can ping it now. So what's happening is it's translating it. So we can actually go look at that. That's a good way for you to check to make sure it's working. We're going to type show, I think it's IP. No. Okay, so show IPNAT and its translations. And it's not doing any. Let's try again. Let's see if we can get it to actually do the things. Let's see if we can ping it again. You gonna turn on? Thank you. There you go. Now we actually getting some translations, so you can see that it's actually translating. It's translating this, which is our server's IP address. It's translating it to a new address in the pool with a different port number, and then it's going out, and that way it's allowed in. Okay, so let's go ahead and config T back in. Now, just to make sure we're good, let's go ahead and check on all of our other ones, right? So this should be ping 99. Let's do 210.123.123.2. Sure enough, I can see it. So that means that this computer can see inside, and this one should be able to as well, but we'll double check. 210.123.123.2. There we go. Okay. So that means all of these computers in LAN 1 have been translated and are allowed into the ISP. So that's done. That's step one. We got the pool knocked out. So we still have two static addresses left, and the PAT using serial interface, the serial interface. So we're going to scroll down to this next step, which is right here. All right, this is going to be our PAT using the serial port. Okay. PAT, we know it's PAT because I'm using the overload command here, right? So let me zoom in a little bit, see if that's a little better for you. Try and make it so I know you guys can read it, right? Okay. So we come into router 1, and we're already in config T. We're going to create an access list again so that we can tell it, hey, these guys are allowed into the club. So we're going to type in access, again, ACC tab. We did 69, nice. Let's do 10. We'll make it simple, right? We'll do what I have written down. I have 33 written down. Permit. So we want to permit these addresses in. Now, what are my IP addresses that I want for this? I want to do both of these two LANs, right? So that's 10.11.12.0 network ID and 172.16.8 network ID. So as you can see here, we've got those already. So 10.11.12.0 and then wildcard mask of 3 zeros and 255. Enter. Access list 33 permit and 172.16.8.0.0.0.255. Enter. So there's our two lists. In the original example in his class, we only had to do this once. Why? Because we only had one LAN that we wanted to do PAT with. So now, same concept as before. Remember, if you can remember IPNAT inside, hit question mark. Your only option is source, question mark. We just made a list, did we not? Yes. And notice how the other option is static. Hint, hint, that's where we're going next time. This time we know it's not static, right? Because we're doing this LANs. We're doing network IDs, right? So what is my source? It's going to be a list. And what did we call that list? We called that list 33. And what do we want to do? We want to question mark. Well, options are interface or pool. Well, we've already done pool. It's not pool. Now we want it to be going through the serial port interface. So interface is what we're going to type in. And then what interface is it? Well, it's S0/0/0. Now, if we hit enter at this point, it will go over. If we type in overload, that would be pat. Okay, so if we don't type in overload, it's not going to be pat. If we do type in overload, it's going to be pat. I would imagine he's going to have us do pat, therefore it's going to be overload, right? So hit enter, and then we'll do a read write. Now, if I come to LAN 1 or LAN 2 or LAN 3, I should be able to ping what? Ping anything in this area code, right? I should be able to ping anywhere in this ISP. So we'll start with 99.8.7.2. Sure enough, I can see it now. And we'll go ahead and do 210.123.123.22. Okay, so we can see in there with that PC. So that's LAN 2. LAN 2 is taken care of. Let's check LAN 3. So LAN 3, same thing, command prompt. We're going to ping 99.8.7.2. I can see it. And .123.123.2. I can see it. All right, so we have now allowed LAN 2 and LAN 3 to access the ISP using non-private IP addresses. So the last thing we got to do, we've got our blue done, we've got our green done. Let's get our reds done. Our red is what? Our red is the static addresses. So if you come down here, you'll notice all we've got to type in is these two commands. And what do these commands represent? This is the IP address of the server that we want to give a static IP address. And then this is the actual public global address that we want to give it attached to. So you remember up here at the top, we said we want static addresses for two servers, 14 and 15. So notice I have 14 and 15 here. This front IP address is not correct, so we need to fix that. But if we do that, this command is it. That is what we're going to type in. So we're going to come back to Lafayette router 1, and we're going to type in IPNAT inside source. And again, if you can remember IPNAT inside, source is your only option, right? Now, question mark. This time, instead of a list, we didn't make a list. All we're going to do is use the static IP address. And again, if you hit question mark, it's going to tell you what to put in. So we're going to say 192.168.0.2. That's my IP address for my server. And what address do I want it to be linked to is 99.8.7.14. Okay? And I'll go ahead and put that up here as well. 99.8.7.14. And that means that this one will be 99.8.7.15. Okay? So back to it. We're going to click on the router. That command's done. So now all we got to do is hit the up arrow. We're going to change this 14 to a 15. And we'll come in here, put an 8. We'll put a 16. And we'll put a 7. So now 172.16.8.2 and 99.8.7.15. Enter. Exit. Read write. Okay. Now, if I'm over here, I'm on these guys, I should be able to type in those IP addresses that we just did, and I should be able to get to those servers. So ping 99.8.7.14. Sure enough, I can see it. Okay. And we'll do 15. Sure enough, I can see it. Okay. So here's what I would say, right? What if I typed in 192.168.0.2? That was not going to work. Ping 192.168.0.2. I can still see it, right? But I don't want the public knowing that is the address, right? So that's why we're doing it the way we are. Okay? So that's it. That's everything. I'm going to include the completed files and then the completed text. And I'm also giving you the blank topology if you want to go over it yourself. And that's it. Bye. See y'all in class. Good luck.